20 years had passed since the long night. The devouring tide was broken. Not destroyed, never fully destroyed, but scattered across the void like leaves in a storm. Without the coordination center to guide them, the creatures had turned savage and mindless, attacking each other as often as they attacked the Valorian fleets. The cleanup operations would take centuries, but the existential threat was over. The Empire had survived. Wounded, scarred, forever changed, but alive. Queen Lysara had died in the final battles, leading the combined fleet in person just as Daniel had taught her. She had gone down fighting, her flagship surrounded by enemy creatures, her weapons firing until the last moment. They said she smiled at the end. Now Princess Aleph sat upon the crystal throne, no longer a princess but a queen in her own right. Her silver hair was streaked with gray. Her face bore the marks of a life spent at war. But her eyes still held that spark of determination that Daniel had noticed in her so many years ago. In the corner of the throne room, a little girl played with holographic star maps. She had silver hair like her mother and curious eyes that never stopped asking questions. Her name was Lysa, named after the grandmother she had never known. It was the anniversary of Daniel Cole's sacrifice. Delegations from across the galaxy had gathered to pay tribute to the human who had saved them all. Species that had hidden in isolation for millennia had emerged. Drawn by the stories of the war and the legend of the man who had ended it, Queen Aleph watched her daughter play, remembering another little girl in the same corner so many years ago. She remembered the day the human had arrived, frozen in his damaged ship. She remembered his first words. She remembered everything. The doors to the throne room opened, and her personal guard entered with a visitor. The queen's eyes widened. The visitor was short by Valorian standards, with dark hair and brown eyes. He wore a uniform she did not recognize, bearing markings in a language that made her heart skip a beat. Human markings. English letters. "Your Majesty," the visitor said, bowing in the Valorian style. The gesture was clearly practiced, but not mastered. The movement of someone who had learned from records rather than experience. "I am Lieutenant Christopher Hayes of the Earth Expeditionary Force." Aleph rose from her throne. Her legs felt weak. Her hands trembled slightly. "Earth," she whispered. "You are from Earth." "Yes, Your Majesty." The young man smiled, and something in that smile sent a shiver down her spine. It was the same smile she had seen 1,000 times before on the face of her teacher. The same quiet strength. The same impossible hope. "We received Captain Cole's transmission. It took us time to develop the technology to reach you. Our ships were not as advanced as his. We had to build everything from nothing." "His transmission reached you?" "It reached everyone. Every species in the local cluster heard his final words. Many did not believe. Many thought it was a trick or a mistake. But some believed. Some started preparing." The lieutenant paused. "We are not alone anymore." Behind him, through the great windows of the throne room, ships were emerging from hyperspace. The queen walked forward, her eyes fixed on the sight. Ship after ship appeared from the bright flashes of faster-than-light travel. Human ships, yes, but also vessels of other designs, other species. There were hundreds of them. Then thousands. An alliance of worlds answering a dead man's call. A small tug at her sleeve made Aleph look down. Her daughter Lysa was staring up at her with wide eyes. "Mom," the little girl whispered. "It is him." Aleph knelt beside her daughter. "What do you mean, little one?" "The legend. The human from the stories. He came back." The queen looked at Lieutenant Hayes, at the determination in his eyes, the quiet strength in his bearing. He was not Daniel Cole. He was too young, his face too smooth, his movements too uncertain. But he carried something of Daniel within him. They all did. Every human carried that same fire, that same refusal to surrender, that same impossible stubbornness. "No," Alice said softly, lifting her daughter onto her lap. "Not him. He is gone. But his people are here. His children. His legacy." She smiled, and for the first time in 20 years, the smile reached her eyes. "And that, little one, is even better." Lieutenant Hayes stepped forward. "Captain Cole's final message spoke of friendship between our peoples. My government and the governments of our allies would like to make that friendship official." He extended his hand in a human gesture of greeting. "If you will have us." Queen Alice stood, setting her daughter gently on the throne. She walked down the steps toward the young human, her guards tensing slightly at the breach of protocol. No Valorian monarch had ever approached a foreign envoy like this. It simply was not done. But Alice did not care about protocol. She had been raised by a man who believed that actions spoke louder than traditions. She took the human's hand in her own. His grip was firm and warm. "Daniel Cole saved my empire," she said. "His species gave us hope when we had none. He taught us how to fight, how to survive, how to be more than we thought we could be." She squeezed his hand. "The Valorian people will never forget what humanity sacrificed for us. Welcome to the family, Lieutenant. You have a great deal of catching up to do." The lieutenant grinned, and again Alice saw the echo of her old teacher. "We humans are fast learners. Just point us in the right direction. Then let me show you around. There is much to discuss." As the Queen led the human delegation from the throne room, little Lysa remained on the throne, watching the endless stream of ships still arriving outside the windows. She had heard the stories of Daniel Cole 1,000 times. The human who came from the stars. The teacher who became a warrior. The man who gave his life so others could live. She had always thought it was just a story, just a legend. But now, watching the ships of the Alliance he had inspired, she understood. Legends never really die. They just wait for the right moment to awaken dawn in the centuries that followed. The Human-Valorian Alliance became the foundation of a new galactic order. Species that had lived in fear emerged to join the partnership. Trade routes were established. Knowledge was shared. The scars of the devouring tide slowly healed, replaced by the steady work of building something better. On the capital world, in the heart of the Crystal Palace, a statue stood in eternal watch. A human man, neither young nor old, his eyes fixed on the distant stars. The inscription at its base was simple. Daniel Cole, teacher, warrior, friend. He showed us what it means to be human. Every year, on the anniversary of the long night, the children of the Empire gathered at the statue's feet. They came from every species, every world, every corner of the Alliance. And they listened as the elders told the story of the small, blue planet on the edge of the spiral arm. They told of a people who refused to surrender. A people who reached for the stars, even when the stars seemed so far away. A people who broke themselves against the impossible so that others would not have to. They told of Daniel Cole, who crossed the darkness alone and found a family waiting on the other side. And they told of the little princess, who saw a human soldier and whispered to her mother, "It is him," because in that moment, she understood something important. Something that every child who heard the story would come to understand. Heroes do not live forever. Their bodies fail. Their voices fall silent. Their names fade from memory. But their spirit endures. It passes from generation to generation, from world to world, from one reaching hand to another. Daniel Cole was gone, but humanity remained, and the legend would never sleep again. The end. Her name was Vexira, but she had not spoken it in 3 years. Among her people, names held power. When she was captured, she had buried her name deep inside herself, where no one could touch it. She had become a thing without a name, a creature of rage and survival. Now she sat in the cargo hold of a small human ship. The ship was called the Wandering Star, and it smelled like engine oil and old food. Her wrists were still bound by the magnetic restraints, but the shock collar around her neck had been turned off. She could feel the difference. The collar was just dead metal now, not a weapon waiting to hurt her. The human who had bought her sat across the hold, working on something at a small table. He had a cup of some dark liquid in front of him, and he sipped from it while he read from a datapad. He had not spoken to her since they left the auction. He had not threatened her. He had not even looked at her. Vexira did not understand this human. She had been a slave for 6 months. In that time, she had learned what slavers wanted. Some wanted workers. Some wanted fighters. Some wanted things she refused to think about. But all of them wanted to control her. All of them wanted to break her spirit and make her obey. This human wanted nothing. He had bought her, brought her to his ship, and then ignored her. It made no sense. "You wasted your money," Vexira said finally. Her voice was rough from months of not speaking. "I will not serve you. I will not work for you. I will not obey your commands. And the moment these restraints fail, I will tear out your throat." The human looked up from his datapad. His gray eyes studied her face. He did not seem afraid. "Probably," he said. "But I did not buy you to be my servant." "Then why?" He set down the datapad and leaned back in his chair. "Because no one should die in a cage. Not even a Kethrani warlord." Vexira felt something strange in her chest. It was not anger. It was not fear. She did not know what it was. The feeling confused her, and she did not like being confused. "You know what I am," she said. "You know what my people have done to your kind. I know the Kethrani burned 3 human worlds during the border wars," the human replied. "I know you killed millions of my people. I also know that humans have done terrible things when we were afraid or angry. That does not make any of it right. But it also does not mean you should be murdered for sport." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. Vexira's muscles tensed. She expected a weapon, a tool of pain, something to hurt her into submission. Instead, the human pressed a button, and the magnetic restraints around her wrists clicked open. They fell to the floor with a heavy clang. Vexira sat very still. She could not believe what had just happened. She was free. Her forearms were unbound. She could move. She could fight. She could kill this human in 3 seconds and take his ship. She did nothing. The human turned back to his datapad as if nothing had changed. "There is food in the kitchen," he said. "The bathroom is down the hall on the left. We will reach a neutral station in about 18 hours. I can drop you there if you want. Or you can stay on the ship until you figure out where you need to go. Your choice." "Your choice." Vexira stared at him. She had been a warlord. She had commanded a fleet of 200 ships. She had crushed enemies across a dozen star systems. But in 6 months of slavery, no one had ever given her a choice. No one had ever asked what she wanted. She rose slowly to her feet. Her forearms stretched wide, her muscles aching from months of being bound. She was weak. She was hungry. She was tired in ways that went deeper than her body. But she was free. The human did not look up. He sipped his drink and read his datapad as if there was not a 7-foot Kethrani warrior standing 3 feet away from him. Vexira could kill him. She knew this. Part of her wanted to do it, to prove that she was still dangerous, still powerful, still worthy of fear. But another part of her held back. This human had freed her. He had asked for nothing in return. He had treated her like a person instead of a thing. Among her people, such actions created a debt. The Kethrani had strict laws about debts of honor. If someone saved your life, you owed them something in return. It was a sacred duty that could not be ignored. But Vexira was not ready to think about that yet. She was too tired, too confused, too hungry to deal with questions of honor and duty. "I need food," she said. The human pointed down the hall without looking up. "Kitchen is that way. Help yourself to whatever you find." Vexira walked out of the cargo hold on unsteady legs. The ship was small and cramped compared to the warships she had commanded. The walls were covered with patches and repairs. The lights flickered sometimes, but it was warm and quiet, and it smelled like a place where someone actually lived. She found the kitchen and opened the storage units. There was not much food, just basic supplies that would keep a single human alive during long trips between stars. She grabbed something that looked like dried meat and ate it standing at the counter. It tasted terrible. It was the best meal she had eaten in 6 months. When she was done, she walked back to the cargo hold. The human was still reading his datapad. He looked up when she entered. "Feel better?" he asked. Vexira did not answer the question. Instead, she sat down across from him and studied his face. He was young by human standards, maybe 30 years old. His face was thin and serious, with that scar along his jaw. His eyes were calm and steady, the eyes of someone who had seen difficult things and learned to accept them. "Why did you free me?" she asked. "Tell me the truth." The human was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed and set down his datapad. "During the border wars, I served on a ship called the Morning Light," he said. "We were part of the defense fleet at a colony world called New Haven. The Kethrani attacked with 100 ships. We had 12. Vexira remembered that battle. She had not been there herself, but she knew the reports. The human fleet had been destroyed. The colony had been burned. "We lost," the human continued. "Most of my crew died. I survived because I was lucky, nothing more. I spent 2 years after that, hating your people, wanting revenge, dreaming about killing every Kethrani I could find." He looked at her with those gray eyes. "But hate is heavy. It gets tiring after a while. And one day, I realized that I did not want to be an angry person anymore. I did not want to spend my life hating and fighting. So I stopped." "You stopped," Vexira repeated. She did not understand. "I stopped," the human confirmed. "I left the military. I bought this ship. I started moving cargo and minding my own business. I decided that I would rather help people than hurt them. And buying me at the auction? That was helping?" The human shrugged. "You were going to die. I had the money to stop that from happening. So I did." He paused. "I do not expect anything from you. I do not want your service or your loyalty. I just did not want to watch another person die when I could prevent it." Vexira sat with these words for a long time. They did not match anything she knew about humans. In her experience, humans were weak, fearful creatures who attacked when cornered and fled when they could. They were not kind. They did not show mercy to their enemies. But this human had shown her mercy. This human had saved her life for no reason, except that he did not want her to die. "I am Vexira," she said finally. The name felt strange in her mouth after 3 years of silence. "Warlord of the 4th Crimson Banner, daughter of Kethmara the Unbroken. I commanded the Dread Fleet before my capture." The human nodded. "Danny Cole, I used to be a soldier. Now I am just a smuggler with a bad ship and worse luck." His name was Danny, such a simple, small name for someone who had done such a strange thing. "Danny Cole," Vexira said slowly, "you have created a debt between us. Among my people, this is a serious matter. I told you, I do not want anything in return. What you want does not change what is." Vexira leaned forward. "You saved my life. That means I owe you a life in return. This is the law of my people, and I cannot ignore it." Danny frowned. "And what does that mean exactly?" Vexira did not have an answer yet, but she knew one thing for certain. She would not be leaving this ship at the neutral station. She would be staying with Danny Cole until she figured out how to repay her debt, whether he wanted her there or not. 3 weeks passed on the Wandering Star. Vexira did not leave. Danny stopped asking if she wanted to. They fell into a strange routine. Danny flew the ship and took jobs moving cargo from one station to another. Vexira stayed in the cargo hold, eating his food, using his bathroom, and watching him work. She was still weak from her months of captivity, but her strength was coming back slowly. Each day she felt a little more like herself. She did not know what to make of Danny Cole. He was nothing like the humans she had fought during the war. Those humans had been soldiers, hard and fierce, ready to die for their people. Danny was soft. He laughed at things that were not funny. He talked to his ship as if it could hear him. He ate too much sugar and drank too much of that dark liquid he called coffee, but there was something else underneath the softness. Vexira saw it sometimes when he thought she was not watching. A darkness in his gray eyes. A tension in his shoulders. Danny Cole had been hurt by something, and he carried that hurt with him everywhere he went. She did not ask about it. Among her people, such questions were rude. Pain was private. The Wandering Star made port at a place called Nexus Station. It was a massive trading hub that floated in the empty space between a dozen different territories. Here, humans mixed with aliens of every kind. Vexira saw Kethrani walking the corridors, and she felt a strange twist in her stomach. She was not ready to face her own kind. Not yet. Danny had business on the station. He needed to meet with a contact about a new job. He told Vexira she could stay on the ship or explore the station as she wanted. She followed him. Danny noticed her walking behind him but said nothing. They moved through the crowded corridors together, the small human and the tall Kethrani. People stared at them. Some pointed and whispered. Vexira ignored them all. The meeting was in a bar near the station's lower levels. Danny's contact was a fat human man with a bald head and nervous eyes. The man took one look at Vexira and nearly fell out of his chair. "What is that thing doing here?" The man demanded. "She is with me," Danny said calmly. "Her name is Vexira. She does not bite unless you give her a reason." Vexira bared her teeth at the fat man. He went pale and looked away. The meeting did not take long. Danny accepted a job moving medical supplies to a mining colony 3 systems away. The pay was not great, but the work was legal, which Danny seemed to prefer when he could get it. Afterward, they walked back through the station toward the docking bay. The corridors were crowded with people finishing their business for the day. Vexira stayed close to Danny, her eyes scanning the crowd for threats. She saw the danger before Danny did. 3 men were following them. They wore the black jackets of the Syndicate, the criminal organization that had run the slave markets where Danny bought her. They moved through the crowd with purpose, their hands hidden inside their jackets. "We are being followed," Vexira said quietly. Danny did not turn around. "I know. I saw them when we left the bar. They are Syndicate." "I know that too." Danny turned down a side corridor that led away from the main traffic. It was a bad move strategically, taking them away from witnesses, but Vexira understood why he did it. If there was going to be a fight, better to have it away from innocent people. The corridor led to a dead end. Old shipping containers were stacked against the walls, and the lights overhead flickered weakly. Danny stopped walking and turned around. The 3 Syndicate men had been joined by 3 more. 6 armed humans blocked the only way out. They spread out in a half circle, their weapons now visible in their hands. "Danny Cole," the leader said. He was a tall man with a shaved head and a face full of scars. "The Syndicate has been looking for you." "I paid for the Kethrani fair and square," Danny said. "I have the receipt if you want to see it." The leader laughed. This is not about the alien. This is about what you did on Veltrix Prime. You were seen asking questions about our weapon shipments. The bosses do not like people asking questions. Danny shrugged. I was just curious. Curiosity is expensive. The leader raised his weapon, a pulse pistol that could burn a hole through a man's chest. The price is your life. Vexira moved before she knew what she was doing. Her body was still weak, still recovering from months of abuse, but the instincts of 100 years of war were stronger than weakness. She grabbed the nearest syndicate man with her upper arms and threw him into two of his friends. They went down in a tangle of limbs. Danny moved at the same moment. He drew a pulse pistol from inside his jacket and fired twice. Two of the remaining men fell, smoke rising from the holes in their chests. The leader screamed in rage and pointed his weapon at Danny. Vexira lunged forward and caught his arm with her lower right hand. She squeezed. Bones cracked. The man dropped his weapon and screamed louder. Vexira hit him in the face with her upper left fist. He went down and did not get up. The fight was over in less than 30 seconds. 6 syndicate men lay on the ground, groaning or unconscious. Danny stood in the middle of them with his weapon still raised, breathing hard. A cut on his forehead dripped blood down the side of his face. Vexira felt her heart pounding in her chest. The joy of battle sang in her blood, bright and hot and alive. This was what she had been born for. This was what she was meant to do. But more than that, she felt something else. Something new. She had fought to protect Danny Cole, not for honor, not for duty, not for revenge. She had fought because the thought of him dying had filled her with a fear she could not explain. Danny wiped the blood from his face and looked at her. Are you hurt? No. Vexira checked her body. A few bruises, nothing serious. You are bleeding. It is not bad. Danny looked at the fallen syndicate men. We should leave before more of them show up. But Vexira did not move. She stood in the flickering light of that dead-end corridor and made a decision that would change her life forever. She dropped to one knee in front of Danny Cole. Danny stepped back in surprise. What are you doing? Something I should have done weeks ago. Vexira crossed all 4 arms over her chest in the warrior salute, a gesture she had not made since her capture. You saved my life on Veltrix Prime. You saved it again just now. Among my people, this creates a debt that can only be repaid one way. Vexira, you do not need to do this. I do. She looked up at him, her amber eyes meeting his gray ones. I am Vexira, warlord of the 4th Crimson Banner, daughter of Kethmara the Unbroken. And I swear the blood oath to you, Danny Cole. From this moment forward, my strength is your strength. My life is your shield. I will fight for you, kill for you, die for you if I must. Until my final breath, I am yours. The words echoed in the silent corridor. They were ancient words, words that her people had spoken for thousands of years. They were the most sacred promise a Kethrani warrior could make. Danny stared at her. His face showed confusion, concern, maybe a little fear. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. Finally, he sighed. I really need to stop buying people at auctions, he said. Vexira felt something strange happen to her face. It took her a moment to realize she was smiling. The oath is made, she said. You cannot refuse it. Can I at least ask you to stand up? You are making me nervous down there. Vexira rose to her full height, towering over the human who was now her sworn master. The word felt wrong. Danny was not her master. He was something else, something she did not have a word for yet. We should leave, she said. The syndicate will send more soldiers. Danny nodded. They walked back toward the wandering star together, the small human and the tall Kethrani, leaving 6 groaning enemies behind them. Things had changed between them. Vexira could feel it. The blood oath was more than just words. It was a bond, a connection that she could sense in her chest like a second heartbeat. Where Danny went, she would follow. What Danny needed, she would provide. She had been a warlord. She had commanded fleets. She had conquered worlds. Now she had a new purpose. And for the first time in years, she did not feel lost. The bounty appeared on every network in the galaxy 3 days after the fight at Nexus Station. 1 million credits for Danny Cole, alive. 2 million credits for the head of the HFY, called Vexira. The Syndicate did not forgive. The Syndicate did not forget. Danny sat in the pilot's seat of the Wandering Star and stared at the bounty notice on his screen. His face was calm, but Vexira could see the tension in his shoulders. "This is my fault," she said. "If you had not bought me, they would not be hunting you." Danny shook his head. "They were already watching me because I asked too many questions. You just gave them an excuse to raise the price." He switched off the screen. "We need to keep moving. Stay away from Syndicate territory. Find somewhere to hide until this blows over." "It will not blow over," Vexira said. 3 million credits is a fortune. Every bounty hunter in the galaxy will be looking for us. Then we will deal with them when they find us." They ran. For 2 weeks, the Wandering Star jumped from system to system, never staying in one place for more than a day. Danny took only small jobs, deals that kept them moving and fed. Vexira watched the stars pass by and felt her strength returning with each day. The first bounty hunters found them at a fuel station in the Outer Rim. There were 4 of them. A mixed crew of humans and aliens who thought a lone smuggler and his Kethrani companion would be easy targets. They surrounded the Wandering Star while Danny was filling the fuel tanks. Vexira killed 2 of them before they could draw their weapons. Danny shot a 3rd. The 4th ran away, screaming into the darkness of the station. "That was almost too easy," Danny said, looking at the bodies. "It will get harder," Vexira replied. "Better hunters will come?" She was right. The next attack came 5 days later. A professional team of 6 assassins who tried to board the Wandering Star while it was docked at a repair station. Vexira held the airlock alone while Danny started the engines. She killed 4 of them and sent the other 2 running with broken limbs. Word began to spread. The Kethrani warlord was not a prisoner. She was a guard dog, and she had teeth. But the hunters kept coming. Every week brought a new attack. Every system held new enemies. Danny and Vexira fought together, back to back, their movements learning to match each other. She protected him. He trusted her. It was a strange partnership, human and Kethrani, but it worked. Then Danny made a decision that changed everything. "We cannot keep running alone," he said one night. "We need help." "What kind of help?" Danny smiled, and for the first time since the bounty appeared, he looked almost happy. "I know some people, old friends who owe me favors. If I call them, they will come." The first to arrive was a woman named Kay Marsh. She was small and thin, with red hair cut short and a face full of freckles. She flew a fast scout ship called the Red Needle, and she could make it do things that should have been impossible. "You look terrible," Katie said when she saw Danny. Then she looked at Vexira and grinned. "And you must be the scary alien I've been hearing about. Nice to meet you. I am Katie." Vexira did not know how to respond to such casual friendliness. "You are not afraid of me? Should I be? I have killed hundreds of humans." Katie shrugged. "Danny says you are okay. That is good enough for me." The second to arrive was a young man named Leo Park. He was barely 20 years old, with messy black hair and eyes that were always looking at screens. He was a hacker, one of the best in the galaxy, and he could break into any computer system ever built. "The Syndicate has really bad security," Leo reported after his first day on the job. "I can mess with their communications whenever you want." The third to arrive was a woman named Grace Fuller. She was older than the others, maybe 40, with gray streaks in her dark hair and a face that had seen too much pain. She walked with a limp from a wound she had taken during the border wars, and she carried a rifle that was almost as tall as she was. "You and I fought on opposite sides," Grace said to Vexira when they first met. "Yes, you probably killed people I knew. Probably." Grace studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Danny trusts you. He does not trust easily. So I will give you a chance." She held out her hand. "Do not make me regret it." Vexira took her hand and shook it. The human gesture felt strange, but right. The wandering star had become a fleet. A small fleet, just 3 ships and 5 people, but a fleet nonetheless. Danny was the leader, though he did not seem to want the job. The others followed him anyway, not because he ordered them to, but because they believed in him. Vexira watched this with growing wonder. Among her people, leaders ruled through strength and fear. Warriors followed because they had to, because the alternative was death. But these humans followed Danny because they chose to, because they loved him. Love. Such a small word for such a powerful thing. The Syndicate sent a larger force to deal with them. 20 soldiers and 3 ships cornered the little fleet at a moon called Ashfall. The enemy commander called them on the radio and demanded their surrender. "Give us Cole and the alien," the commander said. "The rest of you can live." Danny looked at his crew. Katie was ready at the controls of her ship. Leo had his fingers on a keyboard, ready to cause chaos. Grace held her rifle steady, and Vexira stood beside Danny, her 4 arms crossed over her chest. No one moved to surrender. "It seems my friends have made their choice," Danny said into the radio. "Now let me tell you what is going to happen. You are going to turn your ships around and fly back to whatever hole you crawled out of. You are going to tell your bosses that Danny Cole is not worth the trouble. And you are going to pray that we never see you again." The enemy commander laughed. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. What makes you think you can beat us?" Danny smiled. "I have something you do not have." "And what is that?" Danny pointed at Vexira. The battle was short and brutal. Katie flew circles around the enemy ships while Leo scrambled their targeting systems. Grace shot out their engines with her massive rifle, and Vexira led the boarding action, crashing through the airlock of the command ship with all 4 arms ready to kill. The enemy soldiers saw her coming. They saw her golden eyes and her sharp teeth and her body built for war. Some of them fired their weapons. Most of them ran. Vexira did not chase the ones who ran. She went straight for the command bridge, tearing through every obstacle in her path. When she reached the bridge, she found the enemy commander trying to call for help. She grabbed him with her lower arms and lifted him off his feet. "Tell your bosses what happened here," she growled. "Tell them that Danny Cole is under the protection of Vexira of the 4th Crimson Banner. Tell them that anyone who threatens him will answer to me." She threw him against the wall. He slumped to the floor, unconscious but alive. When she returned to the wandering star, Danny was waiting for her. He had a small medical kit in his hands. "You are hurt," he said, pointing to a wound on her upper left arm. Vexira looked at the wound. She had not even noticed it. "It is nothing. Let me clean it anyway." He led her to a chair and sat her down. Then he began to carefully treat the wound, his small human hands gentle on her purple skin. Vexira watched him work and felt something warm spreading through her chest. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "Do what?" "Care for me. Treat me like I matter." Danny looked up at her. His gray eyes were soft and kind, so different from the hard eyes of Kethrani warriors. "Because you do matter," he said simply. "Everyone matters. That is what I believe." Vexira did not know what to say, so she said nothing and let Danny finish treating her wound and wondered how such a small creature could make her feel so large. 6 months had passed since the auction on Veltrix Prime. 6 months since Danny Cole had paid 10,000 credits for a dying alien. 6 months since Vexira had spoken her name for the first time in years. Everything was different now. The little fleet had grown. More people had joined them, drawn by the story of the human smuggler and his Kathrani warlord. Some were fighters looking for a cause. Some were refugees running from the syndicate. Some were just lost souls who needed somewhere to belong. Danny gave them all a home. The Wandering Star led a convoy of 8 ships now. They moved through the galaxy together, taking jobs, helping people, and fighting the syndicate whenever they could. They were not an army. They were something smaller and stranger, a family of misfits bound together by loyalty and love. Vexira found her place among them. She trained the fighters, teaching them Kathrani combat techniques that humans had never seen before. She planned their battles, using her centuries of experience to turn their small force into something deadly. She protected Danny, always, watching over him like a shadow, with forearms and sharp teeth. But she also learned from them. She learned how to laugh at Katie's terrible jokes. She learned how to appreciate Leo's genius, even when she did not understand what he was doing. She learned how to sit quietly with grace and share the comfortable silence of warriors who have seen too much death. Learned how to be something other than a weapon. Then the message came from Kathrani space. Vexira was alone in the cargo hold when she received it. The message was encrypted with old military codes, sent through channels that only Kathrani warriors knew. She decoded it with shaking hands. It was from the Crimson Council, the ruling body of her people. They had heard of her exploits. They knew she had survived. And they offered her a choice: return home, resume command of the 4th Crimson Banner, lead her fleet once more in the endless war against the enemies of the Kathrani Empire, or be declared an exile, stripped of her name and her honors, cast out from her people forever. She had 3 days to decide. Vexira sat in the cargo hold for a long time, staring at the message. This was what she had wanted, was it not? To go home, to fight again, to be a warlord once more. This was her birthright, her destiny, the purpose she had been born to fulfill. But something had changed. She found Danny in the engine room, covered in grease, trying to repair a broken coolant line. He looked up when she entered, his gray eyes showing concern. "You look worried," he said. "What happened?" Vexira sat down across from him, her forearms folded in her lap, a nervous habit she had developed since joining the crew. "The Crimson Council has contacted me. They want me to come home." Danny set down his tools. His face went carefully blank, hiding whatever he was feeling. "And what do you want?" That question again. He always asked that question. Among her people, no one cared what you wanted. Duty came first. Honor came second. Personal desire was weakness. But Danny always asked. He always cared about her answer. "I spent 200 years making war," Vexira said slowly, trying to find the right words. "I conquered worlds. I crushed enemies. I earned glory and honor beyond measure. My name was feared across the galaxy. And in all that time, I never once felt like I belonged somewhere." She looked around the cramped engine room, at the patched walls and flickering lights, at the ship that had become her home. "Here, with you and this strange little crew, I feel like I have finally found my place. Not as a warlord, not as a weapon, but as something else. Something I do not have a word for." Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice soft. "You do not have to stay because of the blood oath. That was never why I freed you. If you want to go home, I will not stop you. I will not think less of you. You have already repaid any debt between us 100 times over." Vexira shook her head. "You still do not understand. I swore the blood oath because I owed you a debt. But I choose to honor it now for a different reason. What reason? She reached out with one of her lower arms and took his hand. His fingers were small and fragile in her grip, but they did not tremble. He did not pull away. You showed me what real strength looks like, she said. Not the strength of armies or weapons. Not the strength of fear and conquest. You showed me the strength of compassion. The strength of mercy. The strength to look at an enemy and see a person who deserves to live. She squeezed his hand gently. I was a warlord. I killed without counting. I destroyed without caring. I thought that made me powerful. But I was empty inside, Danny. Hollow. I had won 1,000 battles and lost myself somewhere along the way. Vexira, you found me when I was lost. You saved me when I was dying. And then you treated me like I mattered, like I was more than just a killer, more than just a monster. Her amber eyes met his gray ones. You showed me that I could be something better, and I do not want to go back to what I was before. Danny did not speak. He just held her hand and listened. The council wants an answer in 3 days. Vexira continued. I will give them one now. I am not going back. I choose this life. I choose this crew. I choose you. Are you sure? You would be giving up everything. Your fleet. Your title. Your people. My people never saw me as anything but a weapon. This crew sees me as a friend. She smiled, showing her sharp teeth. I think I prefer that. Danny smiled back. It was a small smile, tired and worn, but real. Then welcome to the family, he said. Such as it is. Vexira felt something warm and bright bloom in her chest. This was what belonging felt like. This was what home felt like. Not a place or a planet, but people. These strange, brave, foolish humans who had accepted her despite everything she had done. She rose to her feet, pulling Danny up with her. The syndicate is still hunting us, she said. The bounty is still on our heads. What do we do about that? Danny's smile turned sharp. I have some ideas. Leo found the location of one of their main supply bases. If we hit it hard enough, we might convince them that we are more trouble than we are worth. That sounds like a dangerous plan. Most of my plans are dangerous. Vexira laughed. It was a strange sound coming from a Kethrani warlord, rough and unused, but genuine. Then let us be dangerous together. They walked to the bridge where the rest of the crew was waiting. Katie was playing cards with Grace. Leo was doing something complicated on his computer. They all looked up when Danny and Vexira entered. We have a job, Danny announced. A big one. It is going to be risky, and there is a good chance some of us will not come back. Anyone who wants to leave, I will understand. No one moved. Katie grinned. I have not had a good fight in weeks. I was getting bored. Grace checked her rifle. Just tell me where to point this thing. Leo cracked his knuckles. I have been waiting to test some new programs. This should be fun. Danny looked at his crew, these misfits and outcasts who had become his family. Then he looked at Vexira, the alien warrior who'd sworn to protect him. All right, he said. Let us go make some trouble. The Wandering Star launched from port that evening, leading its small fleet into the endless dark. They flew toward danger, toward battle, toward a future none of them could predict. Vexira stood on the bridge beside Danny, watching the stars stream past. She had been a warlord once, a conqueror, a destroyer of worlds. Now she was something else, something better. She was part of a family. She was home. And the galaxy had better watch out, because there was nothing more dangerous than a Kethrani warlord who had finally found something worth fighting for.